the Belated Binge podcast.
Hi, and thanks for watching Belated Binge on YouTube. Here we post mostly unedited footage from segments of our podcast series where we re-binge some of the most iconic series in recent memory that I was incredibly late on. Follow along as we're rereading the Harry Potter series and join the discussion in the comments section. If you enjoy it, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to not miss an episode. And of course, if you want to hear the episode in full, you can listen to Belated Binge wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media, become a patron for early access and exclusive bonus content. Again, thanks for watching Belated Binge.
Play-by-play.
The play-by-play segment that we do here on the Belated Binge podcast is where we, like a sports announcer would do, call the action from the chapter that we're reviewing here for this episode. A chapter recap, if you will. Last week, we discussed the chapter kind of at an existential level for chapter 1. It was a 1,000-foot view, if you will. And that's going to kind of vary from week to week. Some chapters, we're going to have a lot of little micro moments and details that we can discuss. Others, they're going to have not a ton of individual events happening, but a few that have a strong impact on the story. That was last week's chapter. Vernon goes to work, he complains, he goes home, he and Petunia complain. Dumbledore arrives outside, has a chat with a cat, Hagrid shows up, brings a baby? They leave it on the porch to be kidnapped. The end. Naturally, we discuss the chapter more as an introduction to the world, the wizarding world, the series, and Dumbledore master plan beginning. The more and more we prep for these future episodes that we're doing, the more and more I'm intrigued by how I'm seeing the story during this particular reread. I've listened to a lot of these types of podcasts on Harry Potter. Naturally, Dumbledore's discussed quite a bit. But normally it's through the lens of whether you agree, whether you disagree with the approach that he takes, or how soon he should have been telling Harry certain information throughout the books. All of these discussions are valid for sure. But I've not heard a ton of other places that go much deeper than that really analyze the plan that he has as it unfolds throughout the story, at least at a level of detail of a full, thorough reread of the books. And that's been really interesting for me this time through. It's really unfolding to me this time as Dumbledore versus Voldemort told through the eyes of Harry Potter. So I think you're going to hear quite a bit about the Puppet Master moving forward, if I can do a little bit of divination of what's to come in episodes that we haven't even recorded yet. That would be my best guess, if I'm honest. And this chapter is not really that different. We start Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, chapter 2, The Vanishing Glass, with a time jump. 10 years after the opening of our book, and this is truly where the story begins, because this is when we jump into the perspective of our main character, Harry, our protagonist. The first thing we read about is how much the Dursleys suck. In case we forgot from the first chapter, or in case you somehow thought they might have some sort of revolutionary awakening where they realize how shitty they are as people and are taking Harry in, allowing them to kind of turn over a new leaf, and now they're volunteers in Habitats for Humanity in between delivering Meals on Wheels and rescuing strays from the animal shelter. No, they still suck. And we get an immediate and vivid flash that was actually depicted very well in the first movie, where the scene kind of bursts from the scar on Harry's forehead, and Petunia starts pounding on the cupboard door. Yes, I said cupboard door. For the past 10 years, we quickly realize he's been living through hell in a broom closet, which is definitely going to be the name of my next Wizard Rock album. I expect it to go Galleon. But it immediately puts you on his side, which is exactly where the author wants you to be. It's kind of hard to read a 7-book series through the perspective of a main character and hero that you can't stand, right? And we barely get into the chapter before I have to wonder, where's our guy Dumbledore? You know he's been working his master plan this whole decade. He's kept an eye on Harry. He knows the circumstances that he put him in. He says as much in book 6 when he's beating the Dursleys over the head with alcohol. But in this moment, upon a reread, we can fully analyze how Dumbledore has put the safety of not only Harry, but the entire wizarding world, the greater good, above the happiness of this child. Fair or unfair, for better or worse, he's chosen the tactic that he believes is going to bring the official fall of Voldemort. And that means Harry has a miserable childhood. It's worth it if everyone in the world can avoid the misery of Voldemort rule, right? Remember, as we discussed on the last episode, by now, Dumbledore knows full well that Voldemort probably isn't dead. He knows he's still out there somewhere. You might ask, how? I might answer, did you listen to the last episode? If not, go back and take a gander, would you? But as a refresher, Dumbledore knows about the curse on the Defense Against the Dark Arts position. And at this point, for the last decade, he's continued to have to find a new replacement teacher, just as he has for several decades before. That curse is still alive, which means Voldemort likely is too. How might this story have changed if Dumbledore dropped Harry off at the Dursleys, and then the school year started, the same teacher for DADA as the previous year was there? I suppose it's possible the previous teacher's year may have been removed, and ended in some way prior to the fateful night in Godric's Hollow. But what about the next year? Or the one after that? If Dumbledore goes a whole year, or 5, without his Defense Against the Dark Arts professor dying in a broom crash, contracting dragonpox, drinking poisonous mead, getting permanently transfigured into a gerbil, eloped, retired, or any other reason, horrible or otherwise, to not return to school, what if they just showed up for their second year on the job? None the wiser that Dumbledore never expected them to. Would that have been confirmation that Voldemort was actually dead for Dumbledore? Would Dumbledore had come and got Harry from the Dursleys and taken him out of his life of misery because the blood magic protection from Lily's sacrifice would no longer be needed? Or would he continue the course, keep going on his Grand Master plan just in case that the curse had broken because Voldemort's power had broken, but he could still be alive somewhere trying to come back? Could Harry had been moved back into the wizarding world? Who would take care of him? Hagrid? Dumbledore? The Weasleys, perhaps? We haven't even met them yet, but it's highly unlikely that Harry met them by accident. It's all an interesting thought, but we don't have that story. We have this one. And in this one, he doesn't come rescue Harry. And the Dursleys still suck. While Dudley's throwing a fit, they find out that Squibby Fig tripped over a Kneasel and broke her leg, so they don't have a babysitter for Harry while they take Dudley and his friend to the zoo. And the way they talk about him as if he's nothing more than a stray dog with fleas and worms is actually pretty infuriating. I had to wonder why they didn't just lock him in his cage or cupboard with a bowl of water and some kibble and call it a day. But then I realized they aren't just going through this exercise because they hate Harry. Of course they do. But they hate him because they know what he is. They know that all these strange things that happen around him, the ones he's completely dumbfounded by and can't figure out himself, they know he's magical. And I don't think this panic to find a sitter is because they hate him. If it was, they probably would have just locked him in his cupboard. I think it's fear. They're afraid to leave him alone. They probably think he's just gonna magic his way out of the cupboard, escape to the wizarding world, and bring every wizard and witch with a hat to their living room to take over their cozy little mundane world. So rather than risk it, they take him with them. This is not the end of their suckiness. This whole chapter is a Dursley suckfest, just beating us over the head over and over and over again with how much they suck. They suck here, they suck before they leave for the zoo, with the thread about funny business. They suck on the way, shouting at him for dreaming about a flying motorcycle. They suck at the zoo when they try not to let him have ice cream. And did I mention that they suck? But despite how much they suck, and them being awful, Harry is stoked. This is the best time he's had in a long time. Let that sink in. This day full of Dursley suckiness is a highlight morning for Harry. How bad are his normal days, let alone the bad ones? But the good day is going to come to a halt in the reptile house. Dudley and his friend are bored, and they act like bored, spoiled kids do. They suck. And Vernon pounds on the glass of a snake exhibit to try to appease them to no avail. This is when we get our first glimpse of something strange and magical happening to Harry in real time. He talks to a snake. Then, of course, Dudley has to suck and knock him down to get to the snake that's now awake, and the scene of the glass disappearing from them falling into the snake's jail cell is one small thing that I think the movie's got right. I love how the glass reappears, trapping Dudley in. It's played for laughs, but the whole idea is fine. So I imagine it that way in the book too. I just enjoy it more than him falling in and getting wet, and Petunia and Vernon freaking out, and the manager coming out. I really like the idea of him getting in there and just getting trapped and pounding on the glass. I don't know why. Maybe I suck too. But then we find out Piers has witnessed Harry's Parseltongue chat. Although we don't know what that is yet, all hell is about to break loose. Before we get into that though, can we just imagine Piers watching Harry hiss at a snake who seems to be responding? Does that kid have nightmares when he gets home? What does that even look like? How does he not just absolutely freak out in this moment and go, that kid's hissing at that snake and that snake is hissing back? What the heck is happening? I don't know. Anyway, once they're back at the house, he's locked in his cupboard, and we end the chapter on a sad trip in his mind where he reminisces about a life wishing to be rescued from the hell that he's in. Along with a little nod to his fame, a small bright spot before reminding us he's also bullied at school by the same person who's bullying him at home under the same parents that are bullying them every single day. It's truly no wonder one of the popular theories that went around for Harry Potter is one that we're not going to dive into with a theory corner this week. But if you're interested in bonus content like Theory Talk or getting episodes early and other bonus content that we're going to put on there, you can become a patron of the show for your exclusive access. But this is easily the saddest theory that came out when the Harry Potter was wrapping up or making its rounds. I don't truly know exactly when this theory started making its rounds, but it's incredibly depressing. The gist of this theory is that the entire 7-book series isn't real at all. The whole thing is just an elaborate alternate reality that Harry created in his head as a way to disassociate and cope with the trauma and abuse that he was facing on a daily basis from the Dursleys. Think about that. Now stop thinking about it, because it's incredibly depressing, and we cannot have this podcast end now because we have a 7-series journey to go on with this rebinge without the thought that none of it actually happened at all. So wipe it from your memory, and let's move into our scouting report.